Hello. So the engine is pretty much ready to back to car. So all these belts, everything was replaced. What should be replaced. So is the next step will be just to lift the engine up with a hydraulic crane and then remove the stand. So we don't need this stand no more. And then when we disconnect this part on the back, which is a engine holder at the moment, we start to build up the clutch, flywheel, dual mass flywheel, clutch plate, clutch cover, and we'll be connecting to a gearbox, which is already clean, and the concentric slave cylinder was replaced as well, which you can see in the previous video. So that's the one. It's ready on the step, and I show you later what's going on. Thank you for watching. Okay, so engine is lifted now. It's on the engine crane, and balancer is here, so we can slide the engine. Depends which way we want to put in, like a gearbox first, a gearbox down, or this type. The engine crane is a heavy-duty one, so I don't have to worry about nothing really, because as you can see, it's the 8-ton ram, and the crane is rated from 2 tons, from really half-ton to up to 2 tons. I use a halfway line, so I use the lifting capacity about 1 ton, which is much more safe for me than the last set will be for half-ton. The engine is quite heavy, so it's good idea to make yourself a little more safety environment to work. Okay, so the next step will be to remove this this part, which is engine stand part. When we remove this part, the next step will be just to install the dual mass flywheel, which I show you in following steps. Okay, so this engine stand holder, it's lifting on 4 bolts, so it's holding the engine on 4 bolts. 2 are on the bottom, and this 2, the top one, are on the top. So we need to remove these bolts first, and then we can pretty much install the flywheel and start to play with the gearbox. Okay. Okay, so the engine stand holder was removed from the back of the engine. So as we can see, is now ready to put the flywheel, dual mass flywheel, back to back of crankshaft. So that will be the next step really. That will be the next step. Okay, so the dual mass flywheel was installed already, as we can see. For dual mass is a Lucas brand. I can see the logo here, and yeah, it's a Kia Sedona. So that's the part number if you're looking for replacement. It's a Lucas brand, which you can use also as a cross reference from other brands, and that's the number. So the dual mass flywheel is on 8 bolts around here. They should be tied in steps, and the moment is between 120 and 130 Newton meters, so it's a quite high moment. You need to lock the flywheel before you can turn these bolts, because it's a high tensile moment. So I will use the bolt like this, and then even small socket here, and that's let you lock the flywheel before you start to screw them with the correct moment. I will use this in 3 steps. all the sequence, but 61st, 92nd, and then 125, 130 in the third last moment. So that's the progress at the moment. Dual mass flywheel was installed. So the next step will be to install a clutch plate and a pressure plate for clutch and a clutch disc. Okay, so the clutch plate the clutch disc is ready. I mean, the surface here need to be first cleaned properly. You might use the brake fluid cleaner, brake cleaners, or other fluid which can just degrease the surface. So that's the first thing. The second is a clutch plate, which going with the words on the front. So like you got nothing on this side, no numbers and no indication. So this is the engine side, and from the front here you need to see the words, yeah, name, look, product code, etc. Yeah. And this disc is back here because it's around maybe 18 months old, just over 1 year, something like this. So it's still very good condition, so it's not need to replace the disc and pressure plate as well. By service manual, if you got access this deep to rivets less than 0.3 millimeters, which I will say maybe less than half millimeter deep to this rivet from surface of this outside layer, that means is a minimum, and you need to replace the disc as well. So that's the first story. And then the pressure plate, this surface was clean as well, so it's ready to put on the flywheel. It's back to the same location which was before. That's why the indication was marked here. This pin is marked with the pink, and the other pin which is here is marked white. So there is no other combination, and I know the pressure plate will be back to flywheel in the same location like was here before. Okay, so the progress is there, and the self-adjusting clutch is installed already. So I'm happy with the progress. You need to use the correct tool to keep the clutch plate inside there in the central position, and then use the pressure tool to install the self-adjusting the clutch plate. The important part is with this type of clutch we not use the bolts around to tight the clutch cover. They need to be pressed on the central point here, and then the old plate need to come to flywheel. So that's a slightly different procedure for this one. It's already sorted now, so I'm happy with. The next step will be installing a gearbox. Okay, so the next step is prepare. Is actually connecting the engine and gearbox together. What I actually do is I'm putting some small plate here, the wooden plate, and put the gearbox on. And then the next step will be just to make the correct angle for engine using the handle. As you can see, I can catch exactly or pretty much similar angle for gearbox and engine, and then lower down and just connect this. Yeah, my little secret today is I'm on my own, so there is no one who can help me with, and I do the job myself. So yes, it's possible. It's possible if you think properly and you prepare yourself with the correct tools and correct position for work. It's pretty much simple story. So lower down the engine and connect to gearbox. That's the next step. Okay, so engine and gearbox is connected already. I was managed to find the correct angle and put the gearbox here, lifting on the correct side to found exactly the same angle. With the engine crane lining, I do the correct line for engine to take the correct angle for a gearbox, and then slowly slide in gearbox and engine together. So this step was managed. The gearbox and engine is mounted on two top bolts here, and then from the starter side, from here, there's an extra big bolt just over here when the engine and gearbox, and we got a starter on the other side. From the front side, we got a one gearbox bolt here. There is a connection between gearbox and engine, and normally it's undercover because we got a front mounting here, so you might didn't notice straight away, but there is a bolt which is important. This is yeah, ventilation for gearbox. Okay, for clutch. Okay, so this step is complete. Now we can lift the engine a little higher and then tighten the bolts properly. There are also 4 bolts on the bottom, so that's something between gearbox and sump, oil pan. So there is a 4 bolt on the bottom as well. So we got a, let's say 4 which connecting gearbox and engine block, and another 4 a little smaller which connecting gearbox and oil sump. Hello, welcome back. So we got some progress from yesterday. The engine is already inside of the car in engine bay, so it's back to slowly back to previous condition. Okay, so without cover on the top, it's like it looks like. Okay, so in fact the engine is mounted on 4 mounts. We got a mount which is on the gearbox here. We got a front one. That's the one with the bolt. It's a rubber bush. That's the back one, which is just over there. It's holding to gearbox really. And then there is a front one, which is around timing belt here. So that's how it looks on this step. It wasn't easy, as the space is not really there, not too much space to play with the engine. But yes, this step is sorted. So the next bit will be, before we continue, will be to connect the clutch slave cylinder. We connect this hydraulic line, and then we want to bleed the system. So that will be the next step before we continue with putting back all the parts, bits. Okay, see you next part.